reconstruction versus preventive maintenance. And of course, reconstruction is reserved for those streets that are beyond what a preventive maintenance program can do them. They've deteriorated to the point where they need to be completely reconstructed. In Victoria, based on a street standard that was adopted in 2014 after this plan came out, this is what the anatomy of a reconstructed street segment looks like. You can see at the very bottom level the existing soils. It's what we call the subgrade. Sometimes it is stabilized with either lime, fly ash, or cement in order to make it very strong. Sometimes it's just compacted depending on the testing of that soil, what that soil requires. Directly above that is a geogrid, which is basically a plastic mesh material that's put over the existing soil before you build the road on it to provide extra structural stability for that roadway. Then you've got aggregate base course. That is now 8 inches of crushed limestone base. The next layer is shown there as an asphalt pavement base course. Basically, that is a seal coat. It's a bond breaker between the final riding surface and the limestone base. And then the final riding surface is 1.5 inches or 2 inches of hot mix asphaltic concrete surface course.
Lynn,
yes.
Go back to that previous slide.
Yes, ma'am.
That asphalt pavement base course.
Yes.
Is that what I sometimes call the goop and gravel?
Yes, that is seal coat.
Seal coat?
It's a single seal coat, though, instead of a double seal coat.
Thank you.
The picture of hot mix. This is hot mix is a manufactured product. It's made or processed in a hot mix plant, and it is basically a mixture of sand, aggregate, and oil or asphalt to create a product that then can be applied to a roadway in 1.5 inches or a 2-inch thick lift using a laydown machine like you see here. And the result is a very smooth riding surface. The cost to reconstruct the street, as I've mentioned here, without any concrete work, does not include curb and gutter, sidewalks, driveways, handicap ramps, just utilities, just the roadway itself. The cost is about $42 per square yard, which equates to $330,000 per lane mile. Since most of our residential streets are 2-lane roads, you can say $666,000 a running mile about just for the roadway reconstruction. That is the process we are using in Castle Hills as we speak. By contrast, preventive maintenance is a very different process. It is a pavement management strategy designed to preserve the street and retard its deterioration over time. It is typically applied to structurally sound pavements in good condition that have significant remaining service life on them. In most cases, as well as here in Victoria, preventive maintenance consists of crack sealing and/or seal coating. Typically, we would recommend doing a crack seal on a roadway every 2 to 3 years and a seal coat every 7 years. Again, it's applied to good streets to keep them in good condition. Typically applied directly, a seal coat is typically applied directly over an existing asphalt surface. Now, it doesn't have to be, but that's how it's typically applied, and that's how we're applying it in Mayfair and Mayfair Terrace. We will be soon. The project was let recently. We do have a signed contract now, so I believe that work will start soon. This is a graphic. This is from the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. But I think it's a good graphic, and it shows what happens to pavement with and without preventive maintenance. And you can see you start out with a good street, and over time, without preventive maintenance, its quality falls off dramatically after a short period of time. However, with preventive maintenance at several intervals there, 7-year intervals, you can see that out there at the end of that same time period, the pavement now is still up in the fair to good condition versus the very poor as it would be without any preventive maintenance. Now, the pavement condition still declines. If you look up there at the preventive maintenance, it's still declining. However, it's declining at a much slower rate. And so eventually, it still will be a candidate for reconstruction. However, hopefully we've extended its life by applying preventive maintenance. The seal coat process is basically putting down a layer of oil or emulsion on the roadway or hot liquid asphalt, and then coming back over the top of it with some aggregate, some typically coated rock aggregate. Here in Victoria, we use what we call a double chip seal or a double seal coat, so it's two passes. A pass of oil, pass of rock, come back over the top of it with another pass of oil, and then another pass of rock. Now, I said earlier that it's typically applied as a preventive measure over existing asphalt surfaces, but it doesn't have to be. There are many roadways in Victoria that were built as a double seal coat roadway only. Meadow Creek is one of them. Meadow Creek has never had hot mix on it. It was constructed as a seal coat roadway. I live in Highland Hills too. The streets in my neighborhood are a double seal coat roadway. It's never had hot mix on it. Riverside Park, all the roadways in, I'm sorry?
Continue. No.
All the roadways in Riverside Park are double seal coat roadways. And that was the standard for many, many years, a long time ago.
That's my question. That
was
was the standard.
That was the standard. It is no longer the standard for reconstruction.
Okay.
Here is the anatomy of a two-course seal coat street. You see the same base section down there. Typically, however, because these streets are older, we weren't using limestone at the time. That's typically a gravel base from local pits around here that was used.
What was the depth of that base in those days?
It varies on subdivision and when it was constructed. And then on top of that, you have a prime coat, which is basically an oil that's applied to the top of that to basically provide a tack for everything else to stick to. Then you've got your first course of hot liquid asphalt, followed by a course of aggregate, and then your second seal coat course right on top of it. You'll see down there that I say cement stabilized base. In most cases in the past, these roadways, the base sections were not stabilized. However, in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about what we're doing in Meadow Creek, and you'll see, but we are cement stabilizing the base there as not a reconstruction method, but an enhanced preventive maintenance, and I'll explain that in just a minute. This graphic just kind of shows you what a seal coat looks like. That's a single seal you see, so you see what they're calling binder is basically the oil, and then the rock on top of it. Now, we apply a second course, and so you see the voids there in between those rocks in the aggregate. That second course then gets in between there and fills those up and provides even a better surface than a single course. But that just kind of shows you how it works. We use several different sizes of rock. Historically, here in Victoria, a grade 3 with a grade 4 over the top of it. That's 3/8 rock, 3/8 inch nominal diameter rock as the first coat, and 1/4 inch as the top coat. That allows you to apply more oil, get more seal. The bigger the rock, the more oil you can apply without having a bleeding problem. However, over time, because of complaints about ride quality, we have tried now to mainly use a grade 4 or a grade 5 rock. In some areas, we're using a 5 over a 4. In Meadow Creek, currently we're using 2 4s. Part of the issue with choosing aggregate size right now also is availability. Coated seal coat rock is very difficult to obtain right now. It's hard to come by. TxDOT has let a lot of projects over the last couple of years, and it is consuming most of the rock that is available for road. So it's difficult to get, and so when we're making a decision on whether to use 2 4s or a 4 and a 5, some of it has to do with what's available. Okay, with seal coats, you'll see a lot of loose aggregate when you're done with it, and that is a part of the problem, and that's what we've heard complaints with about Meadow Creek. It has to be swept up, and our contract requires our contractor to come in at the conclusion of the project and sweep up and remove all that loose aggregate. Then it requires to come back about a month later and re-sweep it to pick up any loose aggregate that might have shelled over that time and come loose. By contrast, seal coat, about $5 per square yard, or $39,600 per lane mile. So about 1/8 the cost of the reconstruction. Now, you'll notice this, some of you probably remember this list. This is a list of the streets at the time that we put together the residential street improvement plan that were already behind the curve on needing to be seal coated, some 56 miles of streets. And of course, they start with a street rating of 85 at the top, and as you go down the list, the streets are newer and have a higher rating. So we're starting up there with the Meadow Creeks and Hamlets that had an 85 street rating. So it's right there on the cusp of, do we put preventive maintenance, or do we make them a candidate for reconstruction? And I think this graphic will kind of show what I'm trying to get to here. You know, that when a street is good up there, it's clearly well above 85. It's clearly a candidate for preventive maintenance and seal coat. And that's like what we're doing at Mayfair and Mayfair Terrace, where you spray that right over the top of existing asphalt. When the street is in very poor condition, it's obviously a candidate for reconstruction, and that's what we're doing at Castle Hills. It's that center area right around that transition period where it's like, well, it could go either way, right around 85. And so that is Meadow Creek. And so what we're doing there is, instead of just a typical preventive maintenance program, we're doing an enhanced preventive maintenance program. It's called a reclaimed seal. And it's basically, you know, in a reconstruct, we go in there and dig up all the base and haul it off. And we bring in new base. And that's a huge part of the cost. What we're doing in these subdivisions is going in with a big mixer, grinding up the base that's there now, then taking transports loads of cement and bringing them in and mixing that cement with that base, and then resetting that base in there with a blade. And when we do that, it hardens up and firms up that base where it's very hard, because the heart of a roadway, of course, is its foundation. Now, it is gravel base right now. It is not limestone. And so it is not going to ever be as smooth as a limestone-based roadway. You can take and seal coat, for instance, Castle Hills right now, even though it has a seal coat, it's smoother than these roads over here, but you've got a limestone base to work with, whereas here you got a gravel base with large rocks in it. Now, we are, what Ken was talking about a while ago, because some of those areas are rough in Meadow Creek, especially in the intersections and on Pennsylvania, before we let them shoot their double seal on there, they've got their prime coat down now with the ice rock. They're going to bring in a very thin layer of hot mix and blade it in to try to level that up a little bit before they shoot their double seal on that. We think that will help make the ride smoother. We're going to see. Of course, after that base work's done, then you come in and apply your double seal coat. The cost of that reclaimed seal process is about $17 per square yard. So about 3 times higher than a traditional seal coat, but still about 1/3 of the cost of reconstruction. I wanted to finish up with this video, and then I'll address any questions you might have. This is a text-out video that will go over basically some of the same things I've said. Keep in mind that some of the numbers they quote in here, though, are for resurfacing only, which does not include any base work, and so it is a lot less per square yard than my total reconstruct price of $42, because it doesn't have any of the base work in it.
Over time, roads develop cracks and potholes from normal traffic and weather. This causes rough driving surfaces, but it also damages vehicles and poses safety hazards. Simply put, roads must be maintained. Costs of repairs rise as roads age. We can't let our invested tax dollars go to waste by not maintaining our roads. We've entrusted the Texas Department of Transportation, TxDOT, to find cost-effective solutions for road maintenance. Resurfacing is one solution for repairing roads. Resurfacing involves removing the top layer of the damaged roadway and replacing it with a new surface. The result is a smooth roadway that is safe and quiet to ride on. The downside to resurfacing is the expense. Although prices vary across the state, it costs approximately $105,000 to $125,000 to resurface 1 mile of a 2-lane road. To add to that cost, the newly resurfaced roadway will require maintenance in approximately 4 years. A more cost-effective preventive maintenance option is a seal coat. A seal coat, also known as a chip seal, can extend the life expectancy of a given roadway by many years at a fraction of the cost of resurfacing. It costs approximately $35,000 to $65,000 to place a seal coat on 1 mile of a 2-lane road, a savings of up to $90,000 per mile. A greater benefit is that the roadway will last another 7 to 10 years, saving even more money. Seal coats are used on roads that are beginning to crack. The process begins by filling roadway cracks with a layer of hot oil. This seals water out and keeps cracks from expanding. A layer of rock is spread on top of the oil and then packed down. At first, driving on a newly sealed road is louder than on a resurfaced road. Noise fades as traffic packs down the rock, pressing the smaller rocks into the sealant oil like a puzzle. Notice how the road surface starts to smooth out 1 year after the seal coat was applied. After 4 years, the road is even smoother. Some cyclists find it difficult to ride on new seal coats because of the initial rough surface. When possible, TxDOT provides advance notice to cycling groups about upcoming seal coat projects so they can adjust their routes until the fresh coating can settle. Eventually, traffic pushes the rocks into the oil and the road surface smooths out and becomes a great roadway for cyclists. With an 80,000-lane-mile system, any stretch of roadway that doesn't require constant attention from maintenance crews saves taxpayer dollars and allows funds to be spent elsewhere. In an economy where squeezing every penny out of each dollar is top priority, seal coating is just one way TxDOT is bridging the gap between a growing system and shrinking revenues.